I'd like to call this special meeting of the Waterford Town Board to order February 26, 2024 at 12:30. This meeting is for the purpose of discussion, possible action of implementing policies and procedures for special events, policing and parking. I asked to have a representative from each department here. I believe Bill Miller from Tishigan Fire will have somebody here to discuss this. So we started off, we had a draft, thank you, we created a draft, Dale and I sat for quite some time last week and went through it and added notes, edited some things. So then I printed that whole thing off to give everyone a better starting point, to where we can start. And I see some of you have your notes on the side, so we're gonna start, but I'm assuming all of you went through it and read it. We're gonna start. I'll let you talk about any edits or changes that you'd want to make.
Yeah, but maybe move up a little bit too. They don't have the microphones aren't hooked up.
Doesn't have a copy.
You have a copy, you just told me over the weekend?
Oh, you don't have a copy?
I got on the other matter we discussed, I have nothing on this. 'Cause I have
Oh,
everything.
just she, I gave Tina like 6 copies. Do you have any more copies of this?
Well, I've got an extra one here.
Oh, do you?
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you.
Setting a trap for the old guys. Does Bill have a copy of this?
What's up?
Does Bill have a copy of this?
I'm not sure. Well, that's okay, we'll go through it.
Okay.
So, anyone that would want to start with any, edits, I don't know if you wanted me to actually read what we have on this draft. This is kind of right now a working draft. We expect to just work through it. This is almost just kind of like a workshop to work through all this, get everybody's edits and opinions and go from there. But we did spend considerable time, going through and drafting some of these things. The things in red in here are things that we definitely need to go through and to talk about. So, all right. Want to start with any edit concerns, or did you want me to read this thing out loud, or did everyone want me to make some extra copies? Which way maybe we should have done, but
Well, if you're going through, the board's gonna kind of look at it first and then
yeah.
I don't know if you have to read it.
Okay, so first we're taking a look at special events, what classifies a special event. Special events classified as an activity that uses public roadways, waterways, rights of ways, sidewalks, parks, or other public property, or events which may require increased levels of town services, including law enforcement, fire, EMS, or DPW. Such activities include but are not limited to auctions, carnivals, circuses, concerts, dances, exhibitions, fairs, festivals, parades, races, or sporting events. A class 1 special event is a special event expecting 100 or more attendees and any of the following occur. Alcohol is served or sold, outdoor entertainment is planned, food trucks or vendors will be selling food. The event lasts longer than 1 day. Event requires closure of public roadways, rights of ways, or sidewalks. Class 2 special event, a special event not meeting the criteria of class 1. And we have event coordinator, individual identified as a point of contact will be on site during the event to address issues raised by town officials, law enforcement, etc. So in that first part, do we have anybody who wanted to change anything, or any questions or any edits?
I think it should be, 100 is quite small. We don't have that many big events. I mean, like the Civic Center holds technically 282. I think that number should be increased. I mean, because you're gonna create a lot of work for the office team here if it's 100 or more. I mean, because I just think it's a small number now. We don't have that many big events in town. We already have something that, if there's outside, like the Hilltop tried for the music, they had to come to the town anyway. So,
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I don't have any problem increasing that number.
Do you have a number you're thinking of?
well, as a Lions member, I would say 282, except for the Civic Center holds, but I'd round it to 300 to be fair. Evens, we know it's 300, we don't exceed that, I mean, but there has times, I mean, fireworks dance got big, I mean, it doesn't happen that often.
Okay.
So. Law
Yeah, I mean-
enforcement or fire have any concerns about having a larger gathering without a presence there and under any of these circumstances with alcohol, outdoor entertainment, food trucks?
No,
I think it would just depend upon the venue, though. I mean, if you had 300 people at the watering hole, that would create quite a mess down there.
But they already have occupancy signs, for the size of their building. Same here with the Hilltop or any other place, Bobbers, they have their set occupancy they have to have anyways.
Well, their occupancy is for indoor, so if they have like outdoor events, they could exceed their occupancy. I think is what
Right.
what we're getting at, or he's getting at. If they have a special event at Hilltop, you know, their occupancy might be 85 people, but if they wanna, like what they proposed with the parking lot, that could be 300 or 299,
yeah,
and then they don't need a permit.
Well, what this covers, any outdoor entertainment had to come to the board before.
That was what I was saying, so if there's a road closure, it's in the park, even if it's less than 300, but it closes, or any of the things you mentioned, they would still need the permit? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Change that to or
yeah. But we also need to
300
think,
people or any of those criteria.
Yeah.
we also need to think about raising the numbers of parking too. So that's another thing to consider.
Up to 300.
Okay. Let's move on to, a permit required. Obviously, these are permit required. Application requirements, applications shall be filled out with the town clerk, said at least 60 days in advance of the proposed event. Usually that's not an issue. Usually people know long before that. Incomplete applications may be refused. Permit fees are required at the time of the application. When we're looking at, maybe language in here, or maybe make about reimbursement of fees if the application is denied. And then the application form may be modified from time to time. The process of that, upon receipt of a completed application and the fee, the town clerk shall distribute the application to law enforcement, fire department, and DPW for review and comment. The law enforcement, fire, and public works shall complete the review and provide the town clerk with the comments within 15 days. The reason I made it 15 days is if they have 60 days ahead of the event to get it into the clerk. And then it gives you guys 15 days to get it back to us. It gives us enough time to get it before our next town board meeting so we can approve it before their event. I figured that would be long enough time. Does anybody have any questions or issues with any of those?
What is the fee right now?
What's that?
What is the fee right now?
I believe it's
Well,
up
that's
to,
something else we'll talk about.
the
yeah.
current one is up to $1,000 per day, I believe. But I don't know that that's ever really been assessed.
Well, I know as Lions, we always paid the $20 is what we've always done.
Yeah. Yeah, something else we'll talk about.
Well, the other part then, if it's denied, how much of the application are we gonna give them back?
Right, that's another question, how much, we should probably keep some, just because, there's processing and work that was done on it, so that's something to keep in mind and to think about. So I think the permit fees is kind of at the end, we could talk about that.
Madam Chairman? Hi, I was gonna say chairman, I'm sorry, chairperson. Are you gonna require a bond or a proof of an insurance binder to come with the application? In other words, they should submit, that wouldn't necessarily cost them anything, but an application That was submitted with it, we have liability coverage.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's further on.
Yep, that's coming up.
Okay, I'm just saying with the application though.
Yeah. Yeah, so in review, second sheet, the town board shall review all class one permit applications and all the department comments when we get them back. The town board shall approve the permit, deny the permit, or approve it with conditions. Once approved, the clerk shall issue the permit. The town clerk shall review all class two applications. If requirements are met, she shall issue the permit. If she has concerns regarding the application, she'll transmit it and the department comments to the town board for review. And we put restrictions, no permit shall be issued to anyone less than 18 years of age or 21 if alcohol will be served or sold. No permit shall be issued to an applicant or sponsor who has had a permit revoked within the last 2 years of the date of application. Any questions, comments, edits?
Number two, when we get the, review from the, law enforcement, fire and public works, it should probably be written. Just as a review, just so it's
What was
on
that now?
number two, on this page, the page before. Law enforcement, fire and public works shall complete their review. I just said written review.
Oh, the written review?
Yeah, just so we have documentation. The other one would be is, the town clerk shall review all class two permit applications and department comments if required are met and issue the permit. Doesn't the town clerk have enough on her plate right now to review this and have that?
What, right, but right now that's what you guys do, right? I mean, if you have a class two permit, you just issue the permit. Right.
First of all, class two, class one, that's all new.
Oh, that's new.
That is not
I mean, just so
something-
like okay. So we're talking about, say, basic, I'm
start
having a
doing this
family
until-
picnic.
Like last year, the year before,
Okay.
when the bigger events started happening.
So I'm just throwing it out there, does the board should review class two permits too, or just the class ones and leave it up to her? And like I said, she has a lot on her plate now she's gonna be reviewing and issuing
Mhm.
permits.
Yeah, and I think pretty much like class two is pretty much like, hey, we're having a family picnic, we just want to rent the park,
Yep,
Yeah,
that one's fine. That's, yeah,
Okay, I just threw it out there for,
thank you, definitely.
Somebody else? 'Cause that's what this is. It's a workshop. I want everybody's thoughts. Permit conditions. So here we go. Liability insurance. The special event sponsor of the class one is required to obtain liability insurance. Proof of comprehensive general liability insurance, which names and endorses the town of Waterford, its officers, agents, employees, and contractors as an additional insured party, shall be submitted to the clerk no later than 20 days before the event. The applicant shall inform the town of any changes to the terms of coverage of the insurance. Any changes will require town board approval.
They'll come with the application itself, though. You're gonna have, some type of binder in that. And, depending on how much the coverage, I've noted that we've been using old coverage limits still, okay, like we would say $1 million.
Yeah,
for-
yeah,
I
we
think
don't,
these things have to be increased a little bit, and it's not that expensive to do that.
What would you recommend, Mike?
I mean,
What would you recommend for a
it
minimum?
depends on, like one of the police officers suggested, it depends on what the event is too, okay? I mean,
Let's say it's the Balloon Fest, the biggest one.
oh, 5 million on the liability end of it. I mean, again, that shouldn't be that expensive because we're not primarily, how do I put this, a factor in that
Yeah.
particular event. So I mean, but I mean, you're gonna have to increase that coverage. It's too low. We could suggest, we have a carrier that we could, ask them what they would suggest.
Yeah.
In other words, our own carrier, what they would suggest for limits and that, they could be helpful in that.
the only question I have on that, where it says, endorse cover the town of Waterford, its officers, agents, employees, and contractors, would that also cover the fire department?
They would be contractors.
Okay, I just wanted to
yeah,
make sure.
contractors, yeah.
If they didn't fall under anything else, they would be covered by that.
Mhm.
We could just say independent contractors too.
Yeah.
Okay,
We could actually even name them.
Mhm.
I can speak because I handle the insurance for Lions, but we have our own insurance, we get Lions International, and for big events, we take out a separate policy. So we run the two biggest events in the township, So that $5 million is not a problem. But then when you go down to number 4, clean damage deposit, I don't think that's necessary because we have insurance. I mean, you're asking for money up front, and then you're whoever it is, not saying just I'm just using Lions as an example, but I mean, but.
All right, indemnification, the applicant and event sponsor agree to hold harmless the town of Waterford, its officers, agents, employees, contractors against all claims, liability, loss, damage or expense, including attorney's fees incurred by the town for any damage or injury to the persons or property caused by or directly resulting from the activities for which the permit was granted. The next one we haven't read, because this is what, one of the things that we just really need to work out. Town services, all requests for applicants for town services must be made at the time of application. The applicant shall be responsible for reimbursement to the town for any personnel. So we need to discuss as a group, will we, again, having the town offices work the event? How many officers will they need? Making sure the rest of the town has appropriate coverage. And then we get into this whole thing that we're trying to figure out now, with, the officers be representing the town, wearing town uniforms, driving town cars, using town equipment, at what cost, all that. So we brought Mike in too to kind of help us with that, and you guys to help us kind of get through this whole part of it. So I'll start with anybody who has any.
I think part of that discussion is covered in the review that would be done ahead of time as part of the application process to determine, based on this event, this is what police and fire and DPW think is appropriate.
Yep.
For that individual event.
Yeah, because we'll have something that will kind of fashion it off of like the city of Burlington. So it would be like, public works review, fire department review, police review, health department review, and you would have your, comments on there. So we're looking at doing something like that. But that gets into the whole thing, and I know that, we had something written as, if there's like 300 or more people, you require so many officers, but we couldn't really do that because if you have something like Balloon Fest, we don't have 33 officers to cover the event to meet that requirement. So this is kind of what we need to work on and talk about and work out, hammer out. Ideas, questions?
I think a comment that could be made was, it's good to redo a lot of these processes and codify things, but we don't need to fix it if it's not broken. We've had a lot of these events in the past, and we kind of have a good idea of staffing levels from that in the past. So I would just, when you're thinking about considering definitive numbers or things like that, I would also just consider, some events require more traffic. Like a car show, there's just as many cars as people. And that's, so that's just something to consider. Is there more traffic or is it more of a personal thing? Some events have more drinking than others. Like a lot of the Lions events at the Lions Club, they can facilitate their own things because they have a parking lot, they have the infrastructure. So I really do think it is kind of event by event, what resources are needed, because they're all kind of a little different. And they're not, I think it would be hard to just stamp them all the same.
That would probably be covered under the review process from each department.
Yeah, that's why you guys would fill out, it's like, hours required, the estimated fee, maybe how many officers you would need, or, things like that. Each one would be individually, that's what we would go by, the comments that are on there, what you think you need, and how we go from there. Now, for something again, like Balloon Fest, where you had upwards of, how many people do you think came?
There was an after action report that was figured out by Lieutenant Nelson, and it varies. It rains until you have nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unknown. I mean, if you're gonna nickel and dime all the nonprofits trying, okay, we gotta do this, and then, why have these big events to bring people to our community to see what we're like? I mean, I think we're killing it with a 5-page special event purpose. Yes, Lions are the biggest one in the town. I think the only one other than that bike race that was going on there that happened. I mean, Are you gonna make the baseball teams do all this too for special events? Because they can get 300-400 people at the park there too. I mean, how far are you gonna go with this? When, like, I'll agree, you know, it hasn't been broken. Yes, there's something tweaks we need to make, but I don't think we need a 5-page policy on it. I mean, I guess I should have requested, what was our previous policy? Because, you know, in our club line, Greg took care of Balloon Fest and car show already to get that all done. Now I'm gonna go back to, oh, do we need one for Easter egg hunt? Because we're gonna have 300 kids there that day that lasts a half hour, you know what I mean? Is that a special event at the park?
Technically, I think it is.
But again, it rains that day, we have nobody.
Well, that was, I guess my point is this, if you're
that's a
talking
question.
about that form, and if it is event by event determination, I think that plays a big part in how this is dealt with. And then also, you know, you're not gonna lock them into this specific thing, because if it is weather dependent and it snows on the Easter egg day and nobody shows up, or whatever, then it's gonna change things. But as long as it's out there that here's the event, here's the plan,
Yeah.
however, asterisk, weather dependent.
Right. Yep. Bill?
I don't think it's a question. I think the town needs to have permits and a process in place to protect itself from liabilities along with the employees and the contractors that service the town. I don't think that's even a question. I think that's just today's day and age. I think initially what you're talking about is each event, you're going to create a different incident action plan depending on the event. And when you write this plan, you need to plan it accordingly, rain, shine, a bigger event, and kind of put all this in the initial incident action plan that, you know, Nelson or Jeske would write, or I would write, and we're gonna work together and say, if this event is gonna be this big, we expect this. If it's gonna be bigger, we will escalate it to this level. Here's our communication, here's our standbys, here's our contingency plans when it does become larger than we anticipate. Let's get real. We went out to the Lions Club and they have 500 people down there. We need to shut them down. How is that gonna work? But if we don't have something in place,
Right.
what's our liability as a town or a contractor to allow this to happen? And now something happens. Now, I'm not gonna be the one standing in front of the judge and saying, hey, I allow this to happen, because I'm not gonna.
Some of those events it can be on the permit that it's something, but then it can escalate into something else. Like if there wasn't alcohol, they didn't say that alcohol was gonna be there, but then people bring alcohol, then we can take action on that based upon the permit, and they can be not given one for the 2 years, you know, if they violate, so. The permit isn't a bad idea, but it is good to, because we are a town, to be flexible and to, you know, not have it be shoehorned into every event. One event's shoehorned into our permit, I think you can make it flexible for the children's events, like Tim was saying.
Okay, for things like when Tim was talking about, like, say, the Easter egg hunt, I mean, if you have, it's, you know, for the purpose of having a specific thing to cover the town, right? Just to have something, and for things like that, you know, you can say, hey, check, right? We don't need this, we don't need that, whatever, but it's just having something there for purposes of, you know, protecting people and protecting the town. Obviously, if you don't need police services, if you don't need health department services, then just check it off. You don't need it. It's not a big deal. The only reason this is 5 pages is because the last page is maybe permit fees. And again, it's just a lot of paragraphs of we're working through this. So seeing what would work the best. But the main idea of all of this, obviously, is just to make sure that the town is covered. Make sure to, you know, that the town taxpayers really are not always on the hook. Maybe if there is, you know, extra policing or anything like that involved, extra DPW time. I know that the fire department, you know, so if they're needed for something, I mean, they need to be paid for their time as well. We need to just, all these things need to be addressed. Parking needs to be addressed as well, which will be addressed in this. We have a whole lot of things that we're trying to cover in this, and that's why I wanted everyone together and one from each department to get everybody's input. So,
I have quite a bit of experience with the village permit process, because I'm, for the police department, I signed for those, are part of the permit, and it's a very good thing. You don't necessarily have to have police there, but they give the opportunity in that permit to voice their opinion. They don't have to have fire, but if it was, for example, the 4th of July fireworks, you want it to be on record that the fire department's coming, and there's plans for parking in there, there's maps that the people provide and are required to present, and it's a good thing overall.
I think that review process provides the flexibility that people are talking about.
Mhm.
And having a process that is written down provides a foundation that everybody knows what the rules are
right.
before they come to the table. And I think that helps both sides,
Mhm.
all sides.
Yes, so when we get back to these, the C that we have on ROD, because that's, I think, one of the main things that we're trying to hammer out as a town, right? As far as say like police services, you know, how you'll be there, say, if, you know, it's an event, maybe they're representing the police department. This kind of leaks into, you know, all the other special events, maybe not even within the town, but anyway, so I'll let you guys, any questions, anything?
I think if it's determined that a law enforcement presence is required, that they need to be there in a law enforcement capacity. Whether that's, you know, Waterford Police Department or County Sheriff, if it's decided that a law enforcement presence is necessary, I don't think having people, you know, in a security t-shirt or, you know, something is sufficient. That it should be a police presence.
Yeah,
And could you earmark it that it says Waterford Police Department? You just made mention of the sheriff's office. I mean, if these are Waterford events, it would, in my opinion, make sense that they are with us as the local entity.
yeah, and then that's when we get into the making sure, because I know that there was a provision in there that we kind of edited that said, you know, so many officers for so many people, and we just don't have the officers for that amount for some of the
At that
bigger
point,
events.
If that happened, at that point, we reach out and through mutual aid and hiring other officers to temporarily work for us or the county sheriff or whatnot.
I think my concern at this immediate point with specifying Waterford Police is that we don't know that other piece of what that's going to cost, depending on how the other MOU plays out. And if we're adding all of these expenses to these entities, I wouldn't have a problem allowing them at least the opportunity to shop around for a price that's reasonable to them. I realize that's not probably a popular position, but I don't think that we should put a price tag on this that makes places want to go someplace else to hold their events either.
Yeah,
If I can comment, I think one thing that we all law enforcement officers with the town want is to keep these events with the town of Waterford Police Department. It's a major part of community policing. And I guess it's, I don't wanna say a pride thing either, but these are our events in our area. We want to be the law enforcement agency involved. We work with the fire department, we work with our DPW. It would be odd to have the sheriff's department come in and take some of those events. And, you know, and I think that's a conversation that we need to discuss about how you bill these events and at what rate. We are more than willing to work with you and be partners and try to troubleshoot and try to see what we can do to resolve that, but you know, there's really not a lot for us. There's not an incentive for us to do X, Y, and Z if there's not gonna be anything on your end that says that you have to use Waterford Police Department. Cause the sheriff's department will undercut us at a heartbeat just out of principle.
And-
Because they have more funding, they have more flexibility, and that's kind of what they do. They also, you know, there's no secret that there's, you know, village contracts, and they've always wanted part of that. So it has bigger implications than just saying, well, let's just give these events, let them shop around. I also you know, after our last conversation, I called around other agencies that have special events. And they have caveats in their permitting process or in their CBA that they laugh when I'm like, well, don't you worry about another agency coming in? They're like, no, why would anyone do that? Yeah, of course they go to us. This event is in Cedarburg. This event is in this county. They go through us. And, they have actual language in their contracts, their permitting or their CBAs that indicate that they will go through that agency. So that's something that we are, I guess we'd be flexible on that, but, you know,
Yeah.
that is something we'd like to see. And I know you said your opinion, I totally get that, but we definitely would like it in-house.
My concern is that my understanding of the current draft of the MOU is that it would be billed at overtime rates
Mhm.
and the resultant benefits along with that, retirement, et cetera.
Yeah, and the bottom, I'm sorry, Minka.
And so my concern is mandating the use of a certain organization and then having these activities closed down or moved. First choice would absolutely be to keep the Waterford Police Department doing it, but without having that piece in place, it's hard to make a conclusive determination because there are other moving pieces involved.
Well, right now,
Basically, until we
right
get
now,
that
our
level of
contract
understanding.
indicates the rate of pay for all of us, you know, and right now the contract stipulates how shifts are filled and at what rate of pay. That's all of our contracts. There's a lot of different options when it comes to billing. You know, we discussed a flat rate, which I know many board members didn't seem to like. There's different things that we can do within the contract and create an MOU that could change how we staff, with part-timers first, full-timers second, to save a little money, to make it more affordable. There's a bunch of different things we can do, to try to make that more affordable, but there's also a lot of things that the board can do to make it more affordable for these events as well. And our concern, again, is the sheriff's department would probably be happy to work every single one of these events. So unless there's some language that indicates it would be worked by the Waterford Police Department, we could all do a lot of work and it's still just gonna go to the sheriff's department. And then we're gonna lose all these events, control of them, I guess, or abilities.
I thought the last time we met, there was concern about being able to afford the officers, and there was an attempt to get everybody to agree to work for the part-time wage, and my understanding was the union refused that, so what's going on?
Well, right now, I'll speak for the union stance. Right now, the union has the stance of, we have a contract. Overtime is assigned by the contract we allowed last year to occur, so these events could happen, right? We were going through discussions after the fact. We still would like to have discussions regarding that, but as for events scheduled this year, our contract says these events will be, if they're staffed by police, law enforcement, town of Waterford, those staffing has to be assigned per contract, which is full-time, part-time, and supervisory. So as of right now, that's where we're at. Now, we would like to have conversation about that, but we're not gonna give another year of leeway to work against our contract.
And the major concern is, and what I have as well is taxpayers having to pay for policing for events, which I don't really necessarily think is fair. So I know we've tried a whole bunch of different things and, you know, we do run into those problems where I know Nate and I talked about, you know, if it's an overtime and benefits, the cost is this, you know, if they pay this much and we pay this much, but even at that, I just don't think it's fair for taxpayers to have to pay for special events, for special private events. So how we would handle that. And again, I understand the importance of having the local policing and with the local events, I do. But I also don't know if we can really mandate, you know, places or people or events to say you have to only use this. I don't know. And I would maybe ask Mike
You
that.
can,
You can, and they
100%
do.
you can.
The fire chief had his hand up.
When I called these other agencies and I said, what do you guys do? It was kind of across the board. They said, we get the permit. We address that. We talk to everybody. Here's how many cops you need for how many hours, fire, EMS, DPW, whatever. We tell them, this is what you need. And then we tell them what we assume that amount will be, and they just base out their actual hours. They just bill them out for that. And they said at the end of the event, if it's a rainy year, terrible year, they send officers home. They then get the actual bill for how many officers are there. So if it's a rainy year, we're also not overcharging them because we're gonna only charge them for what they use. If there's a fight at the end of the night and that requires officers to stay an extra 4 hours, they just get billed their actual rates. That's what every one of these places did. They just bill the actual rates for the officers for how many hours they worked after the event. But they all had language that indicated you go through their agency. The one county did not because the event happens in the county, but Cedarburg has it in their CBA that any events in that municipality must go through that CBA.
And then there's okay, then there's a question
Ordinances,
of,
I think you can add it
oh, I'm
to.
sorry, go ahead.
You, forgive me, but I just looked at the internet, and I know the internet's not always right, but they're charging between $15 and $20 a car for 2024 Balloon Fest on town property, town taxpayers pay for every day in their taxes. Why are we bashful about charging a vendor to come in and make that kind of money off of town resources? We're using town resources as officers and contractors as fire, but yet we're trying to be afraid to charge them what it's going to cost to put on the event safely. I think that's ludicrous. They're making $15 a car. They were parked on Highway 164 for Blue Fest.
Yeah.
Are we really concerned that the Lions Club made 20,000 versus paying out a few extra bucks to be doing it right? I mean, $15 a car and there was a parking.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And we didn't get a dime. We didn't go there and the town actually donated to cover the police. So at some point, we need to stand up and say, no, you're going to pay for the resources that you use and the tax dollars should not have to go for that. Whoever puts on this event, if I'm a business coming into a community, I'm looking at what it's gonna cost for overhead to do it. And I'm gonna weigh out my risk factors. And I'm gonna hire the people that it says in the CBAs. And if I only make 20 grand, I only make 20 grand versus 50. That's the cost of doing business. If they wanna go somewhere else, it's more profitable to go somewhere else because they can get by with more. Do we wanna have our names on that event?
Yeah, Don?
First of all, some of the nonprofit events, or say all the nonprofit events like St. Thomas, Spanky Palooza, well, it's nonprofit, but.
I was like,
those are
can nobody
private,
hear me?
separate events, and they pay for the services as they should, of the police officers. I'm all for, I think we should have town officers. I think it's huge about local policing, community policing, get to know people, get out in the public, seeing people, so they know the officers, talking to them. I mean, that's local policing, that's huge. But on the other hand, we can't overprice these events either, where you're charging them time and a half, overtime, all this stuff. There's a point where they can't pay. And what'll happen is they won't hire them. Like Spanky Palooza or whatever, they just won't have an officer, which we don't want that either. If they're too high priced, they won't have it, or they'll have private security. And I think we all would rather have officers, and the department can speak for themselves, at those events. So if something does come up, then they can call promptly instead of waiting until it gets out of hand. As long as we can get a reasonable amount to be able to charge for these events, the town officers, we would love to have them there.
And sir, that's exactly my concern, because under the current CBA and the MOU that's before us this afternoon, it would be billed out at time and a half plus their benefits. There has been conversation, and it doesn't sound like they're willing to work for the same rates that they did last year at St. Thomas. But that's all part of this conversation, so that we don't inflate the cost to the point where they stop doing these things or stop having the security and the safety factors that really make it a safe community. That's all part of this conversation. And I really hope that we can reach an agreement where the local policing continues. But at the same time, we don't want to mandate a cost that just shuts things down.
Well, I don't know where it is on the agenda, but maybe we move that up to right now.
I think finish this, it's on, the next item
Yeah,
is the
let's finish.
MOU. Why don't we finish this first and then go to the MOU?
If I could just comment real quick before we move on, just to add to that, we're definitely willing to commingle things, we're willing to do what we can do. And I also just wanna, make things even more complicated by saying, only the full timers are paid at an overtime rate. And lieutenant, full timers. Part timers are at the part-time rate. So when we discuss events, it's really important to, it's an average cost. If there's one full-timer at an event, one lieutenant and 6 part-timers, it's really not that much over what the part-time rate would be, because the majority of the employees are part-timers. So it's a real specific thing, but it definitely affects the cost. And I also don't know if everyone knows what the costs are for some of these events. Like Balloon Fest, does anyone know what that cost the police department last year? I have an estimate from the schedule last year. But for what we have for Balloon Fest, and I guess this is just an estimate based on our staffing last year, but it was about $3,900 for law enforcement for that huge event, a lot of cops, $3,900. I don't think that's personally a huge amount of money. Is that the hourly only or lower rate? That is the full rate we had 2 lieutenants, 2 full-timers, 3 part-timers at that event. By timesing how many hours they each worked by their rate of pay for 2023. My math, again, I would say double check everything, but $3,900. The Lions Fest cost, the Lions Parade was $760. These are the auto show, 1 lieutenant, 5 part-timers, 2 full-timers, $3,500. So that, when we talk about, I absolutely don't ever want to outprice a charitable organization, but, $3,500 is not a huge amount of money when depending on what you're making.
Mike, did you want to say
I
something?
just wanted to start from the beginning. Are we talking about events only in the town of Waterford or perhaps in the village? Is that it that we're talking about today?
Well,
Well,
let me,
I'm
let me
sorry,
kind
go
of
ahead.
run through. We've got some events that are both the town and the village, like I would call the 4th of July parade and the Christmas parade. I think both municipalities are participating in that, even though they occur in the village. Then in the town, we have a lot of Lions Club events. Picnic in the Park, car show, balloon fest, Easter egg hunt, the Lions Club parade. Then the village or Explore Waterford has some events like River Rhythms. But then there are other things that are totally private, like St. Thomas Fair, the Wild Game Feed, Spanky Palooza. I personally don't think we should have anything to do with those events, because they're not anything with the village government or anything with the town government. And I think the organizations should pay the full cost. I don't think that the town taxpayer should be subsidizing security for any of these events,
Yep.
except maybe the 4th of July parade and Christmas parade.
My question, okay, I was just gonna go on a little bit further, and so we're not talking about anything outside, at this point, at least outside of the town geographically or the village.
Right.
Located right
Correct.
there.
Right.
Some are in the town, some are in the village proper.
But specifically, sorry, this, what we're working on is our special events permit for people getting permits for special events that they're having in the
So
town.
it wouldn't affect St. Thomas then?
What's that?
It would not affect St. Thomas because that's in the village.
Right, but see, this talk with this whole town services kind of bleeds into everything else. But as far as what we're trying to do right now is just the permitting for special events in the town.
I was gonna say, that's actually number 3 when we discussed the MOU and
Yeah.
policing.
Yeah,
So that's the next item.
Okay, but-
So we're sort of jumping around.
Further, I have a question, okay, so let's say, for example, we use town officers as an event or a private event in the Bowman's Club or whatever it is. Does the pay that the town officers receive affect their retirement fund, their contributions? Does that go into their vacation days? So in other words, what they receive from a private event, totally private, like for example, the West Ellis Bowman or whatever they used to have here, that does affect their I'm gonna use the term seniority with the town, their vested rights, vacation pay, off pay, sick pay, that all affects that?
It would go into retirement, but their sick pay and vacation is based on longevity, not on hours worked.
Okay, I bet, but it does have some type of it builds a vested interest. So, can one ever take the position that they're not town employees? When they're actually working that event, that private event? They would be town employees, I guess, right?
Yes.
Okay. And no question, if it's in, okay. If it's in the village for a private event, say similar, okay, something not public, you have arrest powers there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You wear your uniforms in the town uniforms?
Yes.
And you would wear them in the village or in the township, it would make no difference, and what type of event it would make no difference, right?
Yes.
And does the gentleman was talking about the union contract, which I don't have in front of me, does that cover this at all right now?
Yes,
What does it say? I couldn't hear you before.
specific language in the union contract.
All special events are staffed with full-timers first, based on seniority, part-timers based on seniority, then lieutenants based on seniority.
Okay, so in the event, there is a special event. Do you have that contract by that provision by any chance?
Yes,
Can I
I
just see it?
Can we move on with this here and put that one little section on hold till we settle
Yeah.
number 3?
Yeah, we're gonna keep moving on. We'll put that section on hold because that's the second item, okay? So we're gonna go down to D so we can get the special events permit. Cleaning damage deposit. Town may require the applicant to submit a cleaning or damage deposit not to exceed $200 a day of the event. Such deposit shall be delivered to the town no later than 14 days before the start of the event. The deposit shall be refunded following the event if it's determined no damage or repair, was necessary. The town may keep all or part of the deposit to reimburse for any additional damages, cleanup that's required. Unless otherwise stated in the permit, the applicant shall be fully responsible for all necessary cleanup associated with the event. We move on to noise.
Could we address that just real briefly? Because Tim had a good point that we don't want to nickel and dime the organizations upfront. I think the may in there addresses that the town does not have to assess it,
Yeah,
but it would cover the issues like what happened in the park a couple of years ago where the park was damaged. And then the town has that money upfront to go repair it if necessary.
Or you have a 50th wedding anniversary, I reserved it for, and we ended up, leaving a mess, breaking some tables or something where,
Yeah.
May, I think it's a good point. May does cover it. You wouldn't want to charge the Lions Club because they take care of it.
right,
And they're a
right,
nonprofit.
right,
So we already do that now with the park.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yep, okay, thank you. Noise, special events must comply with the town quiet hours set forth in the town ordinance 5.06. Request to modify this condition shall be made with the application for permit and shall be reviewed by the town board. Any questions or anything like that? Safety and security, the special event sponsors shall ensure sufficient staffing to provide assistance with crowd control, parking, sanitation, and medical services. The department review process shall determine the appropriate level of staffing required. Special events requiring law enforcement outside of regular on-duty patrol, fire and/or medical personnel will agree to the terms of payment to the town prior to approval of the application. Yeah, I said shall we require a deposit? Somebody think we need to require a deposit for that? Again, we don't want to nickel and dime everything.
If it's determined that the town will be providing services, there could be, as part of the terms of payment agreement, that some of those or all of those projected costs be paid up front,
Right,
which seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, fairly standard across other communities you talk to.
When I was asking, they bill them after the
After
event for the actual
okay.
rates. And he actually, I think I don't know if I forwarded you, but Cedarburg actually gave me their little Excel sheet about exactly how they bill people, how they put in the hours, so basically he just sends them this sheet,
Hmm.
and then that's the hours.
then I'm good with that.
Okay. A question for you. Doesn't, like Cedarburg, they also have set aside in their budget for them, because they want the events in Cedarburg, like the Wine Fest or the Maxwell Street Day, stuff like that. They also allocate funds by their board, so there is police at those events too. So that's bottom up. Most communities do. I mean, like you were throwing numbers out for the Balloon Fest, and I do recall that the village contributed, the town contributed to, that covered the Balloon Fest. I mean, the parade, okay, that's an hour, whatever it is. You're saying, and again, not to question your numbers here, but you're saying the car show was equivalent to the Balloon Fest, and they were two different things and not enough. Balloon Fest, we never expected to be that big because we never did it before. We had no clue what we're going into. But you're talking about $4 difference cost there. So I'm just saying, does our board, our community want these types of events? I can't speak for the club, but we put a lot of time and investment in doing this. And I know, Chief, you said that we should be billing that, but over the years, the Lions Club has given hundreds of thousands of dollars to the park, to the community and stuff like that. Because we don't keep anything. It's not like we're gaining anything out of doing these events other than giving money to donate. I mean, we put the building at the park, did the netting, did all the lights there. I mean, if somebody comes to ask us for funds, like the fire department need one of these fireballs, they did a program in there. We bought some fireballs. I mean, we paid $25 to the police department last year for being at the Balloon Fest. I mean, we do our best to give whatever we can back, and that's what it is. But if we're gonna talk, now, right now I'm thinking we gotta do a special permit real quickly for the Easter egg hunt. And then we gotta get one for the parade again, even though we did our big ones, the 4 things that we do in the township. At the building, that's, none of the stuff's gonna be required because that's what we do there, you know what I mean? So what does this board and the community want? I mean, you remember, we were 126 guys in the club, 120 of them are taxpayers out here too. I mean,
If I could answer the question you asked me right away, when I did talk to Cedarburg about that, he said that they did used to cover, like Waterford here, they used to cover all the events. And they got to some point where, Cedarburg's events are getting bigger and
they're
bigger.
city, yeah, they're huge.
And costs are getting more and more. He basically said that they got to the point where they couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, what is the size of their department about? 13, maybe up to 20 some right now.
That they're a little bigger than us, but that
Yes.
is why I called them, because they have a lot of events and they're
Mhm.
sort of similarly sized. But yeah, personally, I would like to see some meeting in the middle as well, to make it affordable for everybody, but it's not up to me, it's up to the board.
No, it is, but I'm just putting it out there because it goes a lot of work to plan some of these events and we're
And there
very
would-
fortunate.
It's also important to note that there would be cost savings, because like the town paid, well, it really came out of the police budget, all the overtime. I think for also like $9,500 after every event. So, even if you take a little bit, we're gonna be. saving
I don't have
money,
a problem
so.
taking, we don't have a problem taking a little bit, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, and again, we're not on that subject yet about the MRO, but I think that's a whole nother thing we gotta hash out.
Yeah.
And I think that should have been hashed out before we even discussed it, because we filled out our special permits for the big events this year. And it was not, again, a 4.5 page, 5 page thing here again. I think we're just making it harder than it has to be, in my opinion. Does the community want the event or don't they not? My 2 cents.
So the Lions Club would not do an event because of.
I'm not saying, I'm only one of 126 members. I can't speak on behalf of I am on the board, but I can't speak what the other guys would do. But I gotta go back and tell them now, because there's just me and Kenny here, that's it, from the club, that we need to get these special permits in for these 2 other ones, if we're gonna do the parade and if we're gonna do the Easter egg hunt. Easter egg hunt has started planning already.
Right.
But
Well, for what it's worth, this ordinance hasn't been approved, so. I don't think
true,
you'd
but
have
I
to
wanna make sure
worry.
we cover all our bases, you know what I mean?
We're
Yeah,
also
I wouldn't
inside of
worry.
60 days from Easter, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's March 23rd already.
Yeah.
The dates we held.
They have
Yeah.
starting in 2025 if you want. It's all what the board wants to
And-
do.
It might be like 4 or 5 pages, but the application will probably be like 1 page.
Right,
It's just trying to cover the town again for liability.
Yeah, I don't see a problem
Exactly.
covering
That's
that.
bigger
And that's, I
events
mean,
that
we're not
That's what
worried
we're
about that.
trying to do.
Or, like somebody else coming in and renting the park for a day and
And
like
we-
we happened
we-
with the bicycles,
Right.
and we take care of those ones, because those ones are usually just kids' birthday parties, they don't need police.
Correct.
What we were kind of looking for is how are we going to do the bigger events?
Mhm.
I'm not worried about Easter egg hunt or even the parades or any of that, it was just bigger events.
I think there's a lot of talk about the big events put on by Lions Club.
Mhm.
I-
Only 2.
While they would fall under this. I think most of this pertains to something like the watering hole or the hilltop
Mhm,
wanting to put
mhm.
something on. So while it's important to also consider the Lions Club activities, because they would fall under this isn't necessarily trying to stifle them. It's to make sure that all of the other activities are also in line with community standards and being good neighbors within their, because a lot of them fall within residential neighborhoods when they want to put on their activities.
Exactly.
You're gonna hold a wedding at your house and you're gonna have 150 guests. You're gonna have to come and get a permit.
Yeah.
Do they need policing? That would come under, when they review it.
I have another meeting I gotta be at, so I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Bill.
Yeah, we'll be, yep. Okay. Special event sponsor shall be billed, okay. Event coordinator, usually every, special event has a coordinator that will be on site, during that day, to be the go-to. The town may require the permit holder to provide written notice to property owners or tenants as determined during the department review process, at least 15 days prior to the town board meeting. So this, what we talk about, things like the hilltop or something, right? They want to have an outdoor band. This would require them to provide written notice to property owners or tenants nearby at least 15 days prior to the town board meeting, so they can all attend a town board meeting and talk about it. This notice shall include the date and time of the event, location and sponsors, name and contact number. So then we get down to parking. And what we did, and I know Bob drafted it and we went through too. So we've got our parking ordinance, and basically right now it's no parking on town roads. This parking would be all parking must comply with town ordinance 3.04. Special requests for overflow on-street parking may be granted upon review by Town of Waterford Police Department and the town board. On-site parking of private establishments shall be utilized first, and every effort to keep vehicles off a town road shall be extended. Using a nearby parking lot and a shuttle is one example. Any on-street parking shall place vehicles as far off the road as possible as to not block the flow of traffic and to allow emergency vehicles through. Special event coordinator must present the parking plan along with the application to be reviewed by law enforcement and town board. Town board may approve or deny the parking request based upon public safety concerns. Any adds, edits?
I think just one side, not both sides of the road. And obviously not parking, on curves or blind spots.
Yeah, and that stuff would be, yes, reviewed to when they review it.
So that would be included in the revised 3.04 by adopting the state traffic laws as they relate to parking on the street.
Yeah.
That if they present a hazard, the police department has their authority.
And actually,
Exactly.
yeah, maybe we should, because along with that would be the parking ordinance, no person shall park, stop, or leave standing a vehicle on roadways or rights of ways where prohibited. We took off where there's signs, because there's not signs all over the town. We just have no parking. This does not apply to delivery vehicles, temporarily parked, contractors providing services, overflow on-street parking at a residential property when prior approval of the Waterford Police Department has been granted. The police chief or designee can review requests for on-street parking, considering factors related to safe travel on town roadways, including but not limited to availability of off-street parking options, roadway right-of-way width, blind hills or curves, impact on safety and roadway congestion in the neighborhood, time of day, requested duration of the on-street parking. The police chief or designee may place restrictions on the approval necessary to preserve public safety or neighborhood harmony. Neighbor complaints or concerns of police or town board may be factors in considering future requests. Parking for special events at commercial establishments granted a permit under Town Ordinance 613, which we're trying to work out now, must first utilize on-site parking lots. Any on-street overflow parking must secure prior approval by the Waterford Police and Town Board and requires vehicles to be parked as far to one side of the road as possible to ensure roadways are safely passable for vehicles, including emergency fire EMS vehicles. Waterford Police Department shall ensure roadways are safely passable for regular traffic and emergency vehicles and make sure that parking approvals are complied with. The police department shall also first attempt to have the offending vehicle moved by the owner operator, but may in the interest of safety have a vehicle towed to a public or private storage facility at the owner's expense. And yeah, basically, so we're trying to include the whole parking thing in with the special events as well, because we do understand that special events may happen, they may need parking, but they would have to get prior approval, and that would have to be okayed by the police department. So
Yeah, the only suggestion I have is for 6A, the definition on-street parking on the roadway right of way. That kind of implies you can just pull your car up on the roadway and just get out and leave it there. I think we should include the wording that we had on I parking on the second last page of the previous ordinance. On-street parking shall place vehicles as far off the road as possible so as not to block the flow of traffic. I think that would make it more clear.
That's already in the state law and the ordinance that you're
Yeah.
parking as far to the right as possible to not obstruct. It's just
Correct.
emphasizing the difference between being on the roadway right of way, the actual right of way location versus being in a parking lot is the distinction between on and off the road.
Right, but this is the definition of on-street parking, so I think it should be crystal clear.
sure,
The only thing I have under number 3 exceptions, for contractors, and I have no problem with contractors parking on the road. And I used this last year when everybody was having their roof replaced. But they need to be on one side of the road. When you have contractor trucks parked on both sides of the road, it's pretty hard to get through. Now, picture rolling through there with a fire truck. You're not gonna make it.
Mhm.
Guys are on the roof and you say, hey, can you move your truck so I can get my fire truck through? You're adding a few minutes. I have no problem, but like I said, just one side. Just as far, because not all our roads are real wide, like in Waterford Woods.
no, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody out there? Yes,
For a special event, what is considered a special event? If the person that owns the business says, I'm gonna have a band, all right? Is that considered a special event, or does it have to be a charity event?
if they're going, that's what we're doing the special events now. If they're gonna have a band and they're gonna have, hundreds of people or whatever coming, that would require, if alcohol is being served, outdoor entertainment is planned, right? They would have to get a special events permit, which would include the parking prohibitions.
Well, you know the situation down by the watering hole. You got the
That's
hill,
what-
you got a curve, you got a road that's only 20 feet wide.
Yeah.
Why would the town board circumvent the town ordinance of no parking on any town road at any time, so the guy can make a buck?
They would,
May I? Sir, it's not specifically directed to that establishment or those events, that location. This is a townwide ordinance, and the ordinance that we have that says no parking at any time on town roads just is not tenable. Because we have all of these other situations, such as contractors, delivery vehicles, that may not have a place off-road to pull in and park. And so the idea is to cover the whole town with a broader ordinance that authorizes parking in those certain circumstances, as long as the public safety is maintained, but then still requiring the establishment, like an establishment such as the watering hole, to come before the board and present a parking plan that is suitable to meet those specific concerns at that time, that location for that event. And so the goal is to both address the overarching requirement of conducting business on all of town roads, but still maintaining the peace in the neighborhoods where some of these establishments exist.
But my question is, why would you circumvent that ordinance so the guy can make a buck and put the community at large in danger?
And my answer to you is that we are not doing that because that is a specific instant where a permit would be required. We are not circumventing the ordinance. We are changing the ordinance because that ordinance is untenable. It is untenable to enforce that ordinance. You can, I'm sure, hear from law enforcement that prohibiting parking at all time on any town road just is not maintainable because we have deliveries, we have contractors that do need to stop occasionally on a town road to conduct their business. That it's just not feasible all of the time to have 0 cars stopped on town roadways. And so it's an opportunity to both address that issue as well as the issue that I totally understand where you're coming from. And I support the concerns that you have. But we also need to address the overarching town-wide ordinance that just is not tenable in its current form.
You have you have your neighbor that's having a family reunion and they end up having 20 cars. So they park on the road. As the law stands now, they're gonna be going out there and either ticketing them or towing them. And that's not fair either. They might do this once a year, maybe once every 5 years, but we have to have something to cover it.
Yeah, and the police department would have to review their parking plan and okay it. So it's not like they can just go park. And they would have to have it reviewed, they would have to have a plan, they would have to make sure that it's safe.
The watering hole, that is a Class B highway. That road, Beach Drive is a Class B highway. Is there parking allowed on a Class B highway?
So you're assuming that through this permit process, that it will be granted, when in actuality, through this permit process, they might be denied that whole event through the permit process. You're looking at it from that they're gonna get it, but there's a potential that they may not, depending upon what they want. See what I'm saying? So the permit might help your cause, not hurt it.
And how many times a year would a person be allowed to claim a special event?
We haven't figured that out yet. Yeah,
So I've worked with this gentleman, many times. And I understand his concerns, and I think we're trying to come up with a reasonable solution to move forward. And I think with one of the points he brings up is looking at the band schedule. So let's say they have, just for example, not that we're pointing out a business, but for example, they have 10 band dates listed. Now, my recommendation would be that the owners show up to town and put that together as a package that here's the 10 dates, requesting permission for these 10 dates to park on the north side of Beach. And that's it, keeping it open. And, nobody on Canal at all. And, there's like, it's, I guess, being the neighbor he is next to there, and that's dealing with this. Well, I think you're better off getting in front of it with the ownership to let them know that these are the hard line rules that'll be enforced if you violate this. But here's the dates that we're gonna allow you to park in a certain area, but you still have to provide. And I think it's worked out for the most part. I mean, nothing is perfect, but I think, you've been calling me in directly and we've been handling things as they come up. And I think that's a reasonable solution to yet have the business operate and become profitable and survive and coexist with the residents and the neighbors. And I think that's been pretty successful as of late, but I think that's one thing I would add is to do that.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, through this permit process.
right,
Yeah,
through the permit
this would be
process.
actually more
It would have to be
restrictive.
approved, they would have to have an approved plan.
And would they have to inform the residents when they're gonna have one of these?
Yep, that's what I just read right before this. Yep, they would have to give you
I
notice.
just wanna make sure that everybody's understanding. You bring up bands. They do have bands on the inside of the building, which they don't need a special
You are correct.
permit for.
Right, outside.
You got that, right? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to the parking. I don't care what he does in the building.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
But he would put those dates out there as dates that he would expect to have a parking issue. That was my example. That
Yeah.
yes, to clarify your point, you're exactly right. They're not outside vans, they're inside venue.
Right,
Right.
Drawing such a draw that has an
Right.
impact on the roadway parking. And that's why I just use an example as far as dates. But I think that's what we've been working with when I communicate with him and you, and it seems to be working.
yes. Don?
You went back and forth as far as the number. I guess I'm wondering, how many people do you need before you,
I didn't hear.
how many people do you need before you get a permit? I know it was talking about 300, it was talking about 100. I guess I was just wondering what to decide.
How many people do we need?
To constitute a special event, 100 people. if
Well,
somebody
we,
comes
well, we
in.
started with 100 and now we're looking at changing it to 300.
Or if there's
Or-
alcohol so
right.
served, outdoor entertainment is planned,
Right.
food truck or vendors will be selling food.
Yeah.
The event lasts longer than one day or requires closure of public roads, right of ways or sidewalks.
No, I just asked what number you guys figured on, but I guess you didn't.
300, but, or they meet, these other criteria.
Right.
Still going back.
Okay. So any other edits, changes with
I'd like to
the?
make a comment on this last situation. I think a special event is singular. I'd rather see a bar have one successful event, not approve 10 or 12 of them. That's just my input. I think each event should be applied for separately.
One at a time, right?
That's my thought.
Mhm.
It's not a special event if you're having them every week.
Right. Right.
The only comment excuse me, there are no parking signs on the north side, so would DPW bag those then for these special events?
Bag them.
Put a cover over
No
them.
parking sign if you park on that day?
I guess so.
I just don't wanna conflict, cause
Right.
then we.
I
hear
totally
about
understand
them
where you're
trying to
coming
talk to
from.
people and they're like, look at this, look at that,
Yeah.
look at that, you know, just to make
We
it.
got a special permit for it, but the sign says,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so would that just,
Or
and I,
specifically say no parking on this side.
well, the
Mhm.
two signs, because we've had a parking issue on the north side, that the DPW did put up more signage there, which is one of the rare places that we have a lot of signage. So I'm just saying, if you do allow parking, and there is a parking plan, I would just also consider,
Sure.
bagging any signs that are contrary to what you are allowing that day.
Got any sign bags, Ken?
Have these?
I do not have any sign bags, but back to the only on this side, makes sense.
Mhm.
I did have a resident reach
You
out
can
and,
buy those signs, yeah.
and suggested, and it could be part of the review process as well, that the parking plan, if there is going to be on-street parking, that it be limited in relation to the capacity of the building as well. Building grounds, something reasonable, so you don't have a long line of cars going to a establishment that shouldn't really be supporting that many people.
which would be part of the review process, you're right.
Sure.
And as neighbors have pointed out, in the past, they've sold 5 or 6 properties that formerly were used for parking. So to want to have big events when you've sold your land, doesn't really make sense to me either, so.
Yep.
But we can review whatever anybody proposes.
Mhm. Okay, limitation or termination of special event, the town may take any action necessary to ensure public safety and peace, including limiting capacity or terminating the event if it's determined to be a public safety hazard or nuisance by law enforcement, fire or medical personnel, or if there are any violations of the ordinance, statute, condition or permit. Amplified sound shall be no louder than 65 decibels from 7 AM to 7 PM as in our ordinance, or 60 decibels after 7 PM as stated in town ordinance. And the event may be terminated if ordinance violation complaints are substantiated. The town board may revoke an approved permit if the applicant fails to comply with the provisions set forth in the permit or in this ordinance. Exclusions to this ordinance. This ordinance does not apply to funerals or funeral processions, sanctioned school events held by Waterford area schools. We changed it from town of Waterford because a lot of schools aren't in the town of Waterford. Events sponsored by the town of Waterford or a town agency. Events held at a town park with fewer than 110 attendees for which a reservation has been granted. Any talk on any of that? It's no, and then the very last page, the 5th page, is just any fees for the permits that we haven't talked about or anything yet. Again, talk about charitable organizations and all that. I mean, the town always has at their discretion the ability to waive fees. for certain permits as well, okay? So, but again, this needs to be an all-encompassing thing, what we're gonna do for, all special events. Somebody wants to come in and have a huge event in the park, we need to cover the town, we need to cover the town residents. So that's what all that's about. So any ideas about permit fees, for different classes, or if we should have a fee at all for class 1, class 2, I mean.
How much is the village? You know? Cause I looked.
What's our, do we have charge a fee now?
$20.
Well, I think it's
$20.
75 for
Well, it's
residents.
75, for, residents if they're gonna see,
Rent the building, yeah.
yeah, they're gonna rent the pavilion and all that, and then $100 cleaning fee.
Is it $200 cleaning fee and $100 for non-residents?
Yeah, it's $100 for non-residents,
Okay.
75 for,
Is the cleaning fee 100 or 2?
I believe it to be 100,
Oh, okay.
and we've never had an issue.
How long,
Except the bicycle club that made the ruts. right?
Yeah, but they had insurance, so the town didn't eat anything on that,
Okay.
or they shouldn't have. I don't know what DPW did, but,
Jenny, can I ask how long those fees have been in place,
This is
well, the
Burlington.
park thing only started just blowing up like in the last couple of years, so just in the last couple of years,
Park use only 100.
3 years,
Security,
4 years.
residents, 200.
And that's just for the park, not the pavilion.
You're right.
You know,
All right, you got
like
the
Heather
both right
pointed
there.
out, you have 300 as a special event, but places like the Hilltop and that, they can't even reach 300 in their buildings, I don't believe. So I think that's kind of high, 300.
But if they, I think the conversation was if they can facilitate their normal crowd, they wouldn't need it, but if they go outside, need parking, then they need it, right? If they have a music outside, do something with their lot, need parking, then they would need it.
Yeah, well, they would need park, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, having music outside would be a whole different kettle of fish.
and we need to think about, the fee for, like, I'm just saying, like, Hilltop or
I
whatever.
don't know.
We need to make sure we're including the time it takes for, like, police, fire, whatever, everyone to do the reviews,
Do we charge?
right? That's all.
Or did we just say $25 or?
Any ideas on fee?
Building rental is $125, that's for Rayside Hill building.
Yep.
For resident, $175 for non-resident, and $150 for cleaning bond.
Okay.
Those are all due when they apply for it.
Okay.
And I think that you're talking for the park, but it would also be special events, like I said, if it's at somebody's house.
Yeah, or at a bar, and if the,
Or like a special event would only be if it encompasses town.
Right, that's why
property
there's
or
different
services.
classes, right? Right,
So if they could fit all the cars on their property and everybody's on the property, then,
right.
But if they, start parking on the road,
then that's a different
Yeah.
story.
but you wouldn't wanna charge them $100 just for that, I could see maybe 25. There's a gentleman out there that has his hand up, Terry.
Does the chair want to recognize the floor?
There's a gentleman in the blue.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. Just to clarify. what
Your
you
name?
My name is Warren Corrado. Just to clarify what was just mentioned, if I were, for example, to have a party to celebrate my anniversary, and maybe I had a band or I had a food truck, but I'm not impacting any of the public property, I wouldn't need a special event permit? Is that
So-
what I'm hearing?
Yes,
As it's written, a class 1 special event would be 100 people and any of those things, food truck, outdoor music. If it, and the numbers being discussed, but if it doesn't, if it doesn't fall into that, it would fall under a class 2 special event, which would require a lesser, standard for getting your permit. But that's assuming that it already falls under the special event definition, which is classified as any event that uses public roadways, waterways, right-of-ways, sidewalks, parks, or other public property, or events which may require increased levels of town services. So if your event is not requiring any increased levels of town services and you're not obstructing any of the town roadways or right of ways,
Mhm,
then that's not a special event.
mhm.
What
Thank
is
you.
outdoor music?
That's a good question.
It
A
says,
What was
boombox, a
that?
band, a DJ?
well, this says outdoor
I don't wanna
entertainment,
be
which is even
pedantic,
more
that's just something to
broad.
consider.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. Like a Magnavox,
Bag of cornhole in the driveway, is that
Yeah.
outdoor entertainment?
that's kind of why, you know, you gotta,
yeah.
you determine what that definition is, or you let officers take discretion. I feel like discretion's great.
Mhm.
For accessible.
Or do they wanna think about the permit fee and get back?
Yeah, any ideas with the permit fees? If we should change them, if they should stay the same? I mean, my only 2 cents is that, you know, if there's a large event,
We can always revisit.
just to make sure that the permit fee at least covers the work that's being done, right?
I'd say leave it the way it is for now. We can always revisit it.
The ordinance right now, I believe, says up to $1,000 per day, so it's,
Oh, it's that general.
Anybody down here?
I'm fine with that. Just leave it, well, I'm just saying it's very vague. I mean,
That's 75 and 100.
before there was pricing for nonprofits and pricing for residents and non-residents.
Yeah, like I said, that the town always has the discretion
Can
to
waive it for
waive,
nonprofit.
but we should have a set basic fee, so. Is everyone saying keep it the same, or is anyone saying change it?
Well, the same being what Heather and I charge for the park? Is that what you mean by same? Like 75 and then 100 for
Yeah.
non-residents?
See, there's two different things here. It's what this fee is gonna be, and then there's the park fee, so it's actually two different.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the park fee, yeah.
Well, I'll throw it. Class one, $100, class two, 25.
I think,
That's fine with me.
I think it should be a little bit more than,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
25
25.
is a
It's just
little low.
like
Yeah,
my
it's-
time alone to
it's
look at
already-
it.
Yeah.
It's already $75,
$25.
so.
I'm open, I just thought, you know, I'm gonna be parking out on the road one day and having a party for something,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna pay $100, I can see
Yeah.
25, that's why I threw in the
Yeah.
25.
well, but that's only if it falls under the definition
Yes.
of
Yeah.
special, if for just a
Right.
parking on
Right.
the street, the parking ordinance would cover a call to the,
right,
you know, unless you've got 50 cars out there or something. you know.
right.
Just having a birthday party for a couple hours,
Yeah,
that falls
you
under
wouldn't
the
need it.
parking ordinance, not the special event.
You haven't seen my parties.
That reminds me, Doug, why haven't I ever been invited?
'Cause I don't have any.
Okay, so we've got the park permit, and then we've got, what are we looking at for a permit fee for a class one?
This we've never had before, right?
You're right.
Old Dale, or Doug shot out 100.
Okay, 150
Yeah, it
for
should be-
class two. You know, I agree her time, and she's the one that'll have to issue the class two, so. Actually, her time's pretty pricey, you might have to.
So, yeah, 'cause this is gonna affect,
Are you keeping the whole permit if it's canceled? Or
What's up?
are you keeping the whole permit if it's
Do
canceled?
you refund it?
I think it's on a,
50%?
we'll have to look, you
I
know,
have to look.
if you
'cause I don't
guys,
wanna
if
get
it took you
into the-
3 hours to go through the plan and that, and, well, if it took you 5 minutes to review it, I think it depends how much work was done ahead of time,
Yeah, and then maybe that should,
which would come under your one thing that you had said earlier in here. Number 3 under applicants. Should there be language under your red? You know, that I think it should be probably on a case-by-case basis. If you guys spend several hours going over to the fire department, DPW, maybe there won't be. If it was just about sort of a rubber stamp, yeah, they should get probably most of it back.
That's fair, that's reasonable. As of now, the only class one permits the town would be issuing are Lions events, and
Mm-hmm.
if it gets canceled or rained out, I'm sure the board can just take action, roll it to next year, do.
Yeah, like I said, you take it on a per case basis.
Well, we had a circus come one year, didn't we?
Mhm.
It's kind of a,
It's a per clown.
Town board will be there, yeah.
clown and mime festival, yeah.
So for class one event, well, we're gonna need the DPW, we're gonna need the police, we're gonna need the fire, you know,
That's
to.
class one, yeah.
How much were we looking at?
I said 100 for that, class 250, leave the park fees the way they are for right now.
Do we think 100 is enough for everybody's time to go through the review for all that? You know what I'm saying?
Is there any sort of comparison with other municipalities what they would be charging?
No, maybe that part we should look into.
It shouldn't take long.
Yeah.
to do a little comparison.
What is yours?
I'm trying to look it up. I sent Rachel a text and get it back.
That's town of Waterford.
We could check into that. when
You know, we
see
can't
that.
vote on this anyways, because we've made so many changes, so it's gonna
Yeah.
be redrafted anyway.
Right,
Right,
so we're gonna come through with all the edits and everything, so there was a very good working through, and then we'll do some research as far as the permit fees, and then bring it back with that.
Terry, I just pulled up town of Beloit. They charge 200 for class 1, 100 for class 2, just for comparison.
Thank you.
I don't wanna complicate things, but Muskego actually kinda itemizes it, where if it's just for special event parking. So, you know, I think like anniversaries or smaller events, the fee's $25, there's a parade fee, if there's alcohol, so they kinda itemize it for their fee applications.
Yeah.
Another option.
Yeah, I think since we aren't gonna okay it today, we just take a look at it a little more.
Mhm.
And one other thing, they run the top of the special events definition, special class one special event. Going up to 300 people, and what's the capacity of our bars? They're nowhere near 300, is it? So I'm a little uneasy with the 300 amount. 300 attendees.
Yes,
You know, he was just talking about the capacity of the bars. There is nobody that is responsible for the capacity of the bars. They tell us, first of all, they told us it was the board, the town board. Then they told us it was the fire department. Then they told us.
that's what
the building
this would be
inspector.
for. They would each have to review it. Each department would have to review it. You know, so then the fire department, I think usually is
Capacity outside,
responsible
too.
for building capacity, am I right? Yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna, look, if they're applying for it and they're using outside facilities too, that's gonna change the capacity. They also have to look at, toilet facilities and everything.
yeah, so that's what this whole thing would be, that each department would have to fill out. So that's what we're doing, is covering everything. Yeah, I don't know about the 300 attendees. I don't know.
Maybe not to exceed the building capacity or something like that. I don't know.
That's right, don't exceed the capacity of the building.
Or anytime you plan to exceed your capacity of your grounds, that would be a special event. Something of that nature.
That's not bad, yeah.
Cause I think you don't wanna affect their general business. The civic center can have quite a few people, and again, they have the structure for that. So
Yes.
You don't need to permit their everyday
Mhm.
operation.
Yeah.
But it really becomes an issue when it exceeds what they can have, and that is what a capacity is.
So taking that scenario, if they have 250 people and a DJ inside the civic center, that's not a special event. It wouldn't require any permit.
Right.
But now if they take that entertainment outside and they have 101 people, because now they're outside, that's where you're looking to exercise a little bit more control and restraint to make sure that the neighbors are all, also taken care of.
Right.
So I think 100 is reasonable. They can still accommodate their business inside
We
without
should add the
requiring any
word
of this.
Outside. Right? Maybe we should add special event expecting, whatever, so many people, more attendees outside.
Well, except as we're kind of telling them they can go outside.
Special event
Then you have
exceeding.
the live music outside and disturbing the neighbor's peace.
I like what he said, exceeding the capacity of the building.
Well, they're not allowed to exceed the inside capacity anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
But you are required a special permit if you have an event that's going to exceed your, because even if you have 100 people outside and then 100 people inside, like the Civic Center, they're built to handle that if they have people outside playing bags or something. You know,
Yeah.
that's just.
And you have
operational for them.
you have the facilities to handle those kind of people going to the bathroom and that.
They got a huge
Or-
parking lot, whereas most of our bars do not, so.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're saying if we have a band outside, like we have a cover hanging, we always put something in the corner there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, what I mean, for us to pay another permit fee for that, when we already have I mean, we've had bands outside for 30, 40 years sometimes, smaller bands, but our events are usually daytime events, they don't go past 7, 8, I mean, if we. But we do have capabilities to have outside music by us, because we even fill it out in our contract when we do the liquor license and
It does say
licensing for
that.
our insurance, stuff like that, I just, again, I'll reiterate, I mean, a special event, we fill this out with the beer distributor, we fill this out with our insurance agent, we fill it, special event permitting for anything we do that requires an outside license off premises, so, but like I said, if you're gonna start charging, again, $100 to have somebody on a covered patio there, we're getting nitpicky again, you know what I mean?
About how many people do you usually have to an event like that?
It's a small one, 200, like, we did Daytona last week and it rained, we still had 150 people there, I mean.
But you're under your capacity of two
I am
eighty-five,
under
so then
capacity.
you're covered. So just go by capacity.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we had other ordinances to cover, like the Hilltop, when Hilltop wanted to build a stage and put music outside, stuff like that. I just think we're going a little bit too far with this one, but I'm only 1 of 5 here.
I guess why would the Hilltop fall under a different ordinance for wanting to do the same thing as the Lions Club?
I'm not saying
Oh, when
it's
they
probably
wanted to build
a
the stage.
different ordinance, I
That's
mean,
what I think what he's talking about, because they needed a conditional use for the building
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah,
And it's not
A whole
comply
different
with
thing.
the
But
noise
technically, if they
ordinance.
didn't wanna build a
Right.
stage, they could still just apply for.
okay.
Why would they have to apply for Lions
So
Club
what are we
not to
doing
have
for
music
neutral
outside?
capacity?
I got a thought.
Terry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is the way ours reads. It says, if your event is to occur on public right-of-ways or public premises, you must apply for a permit and receive permission from the Public Works and Utilities Committee and Village Board if more than 50 people are expected to attend. So in other words, a bar wouldn't be affected if they're on their own property. But if they're spilling out on the street,
Yeah.
like a house having a party, if we're parking all over the street, then you have to have a
Yeah,
permit. That's a different way to look at it. Whatever you do, what you
It's
do.
50 people.
yeah,
And the noise ordinance is always the noise ordinance, so, you know, if they're having music or a band,
outside.
it doesn't necessarily matter if there's a special event or not, they're always subject to a noise
Our noise ordinance.
ordinance.
mhm,
So if they have a guitar player or someone singing, like, it's the same as every other day.
yeah,
Look up music, yeah.
mhm. Okay, so
So
we
the,
would
the
change that to
current
capacity.
ordinance requires a permit for any concert. Supposed to find concert.
Yeah,
And
well, that's
circus
true.
and
Menagerie.
menagerie, whatever
Yes,
that
the
is.
menagerie is my favorite.
Uh-huh. Like, when was
Isn't
that,
that in
like
there?
1913?
Okay, so
Okay. So then we'll come back with the
the revised issues.
with a revised cleaned up edition and,
For the next town board meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when we do that at the, yep, at the meeting. And so this was good. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work through it, more of a workshop. I think I've got all the notes, so make sure I'm with Tina to make sure we have all the notes and changes and edits. And I-
Take notes.
Listening to that, and that took care of the parking thing as
Yes.
well. Okay, so next up, I know Nate had talked to me for the discussion on a MOU to modify a section of the CBA between the town and the Town of Waterford Police Association. So I know you had it all written out that you explained to me, so if you want to explain to everybody what we're talking about today.
Just real quick, there's a lot of MOUs, and I think there might be, we've been discussing a lot of things, so I just want everyone to be aware that this is a very specific MOU. Addressing how we award part-time shifts. So during the last CBA, we added some language that, like we mentioned earlier, about how we schedule shifts, full-time, part-time, you know, for special events, regular events, yada, yada. What we did not know would occur at that time was the way it was structured really gave one officer or very few, almost all of the shifts. This has resulted in a lot of our part-time officers getting very few shifts, which financially impacts them and leads to poor morale and things like that. So all this MOU is doing is addressing how we award part-time shifts. And the only thing we're gonna change, we're gonna maintain exactly how it used to be with the seniority for the same events. The only thing we're adding is that when it comes to part-timers, there's a cap of 2 shifts. Once they've reached 2 shifts, they move to the bottom of the seniority list. They'll still be able to get more than 2 shifts. But this kind of rotating cap will ensure that part-time officers' shifts get distributed more evenly. This is big for us because we obviously want to maintain our part-time staff. We rely on them a lot. We don't want any of them to leave. If they're not getting any hours, you know, they become a little disgruntled. So this was unanimously agreed upon by all due-paying union members. We all think that this is a great idea to really help distribute the part-time shifts a little more evenly. I sent it to you ahead of time, but I don't know if it's yours in color.
Yeah,
So obviously the yellow is the part that we're just adding. So we're still gonna have it's gonna be the exact same as we agreed to in the CBA. The only change will be when part-timers are given shifts. There's a cap of 2, and then they move to the bottom of the seniority. They'll still be able to get more shifts if there's more available, but it's just gonna help everybody make sure that they all kind of have hours and it's evenly distributed. We kind of made a little template. Obviously, lieutenants can do how they want to, but it's very similar to our sick call-in sheet, which is officers by seniority. It just kind of has some openings at the bottom. So when the officer fulfills their first 2 shifts, you know, all right, you're capped at your 2. You just cross them off and write them right there. They're just back on the seniority list or just on the bottom. And that way everyone can kind of keep rotating through. And it'll just ensure officers are given more hours evenly. Right. That is
So
it.
I'm reading just from your email. So this is an internal scheduling issue with no financial repercussions for the town. The small change is unanimously supported by due-pay members of the union. Yeah. We have any comments from anybody?
Unanimously supported. It's just by the union. This wasn't brought before John or myself at all. And we would have liked to have had an opportunity to discuss this with the union before it went to the board, along with everything else that comes before the board. We'd like, as managers, we'd like the chance to talk with them about it as well first. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case. We find that it's kind of unreasonable to have 2 shifts offered to the part-time officers, and we kind of skipped over the fact that it goes by the original seniority, excuse me. They want the list for this to return to reset to the beginning at the beginning of every month, and that's unreasonable from a management standpoint. We would like it to be a rolling schedule. The person that gets, the most senior gets it, goes to the bottom of the list, and so on. Next person gets it, next person gets it, keep it rolling forever.
So.
Because the way it is now, the same most senior officers would get those, majority of those shifts.
How many part-time do you have?
I'm sorry?
How many part-time officers do we have right now?
7.
Okay.
That work is wrong.
10, but yeah.
We have more, but some are just bullets, some are investigators. So we have 7 patrol officers, which are on this sheet.
The monthly part that we're talking about is where, so right now, everybody agrees that we'd like to see it rotate to make it more fair, because we will lose very key part-timers. They are disgruntled, they're not happy. None of us predicted that one person would really take every shift, like they just, you know, it's like a feast. So
I totally
to make it, feast or famine. I mean, literally, and it's.
The guy on the
really
top's
killed-
making it, but the guy on the bottom is sucking breeze.
Yeah.
Never, they're not getting anything. So the point is if we start, we all agree, whether it's one or two, if it's two, fine, two, and then the next person, but just keep it going. It just doesn't end, because if it's monthly, nothing will change. It's just gonna be very difficult to really, there might be some improvement, but it's not gonna be the improvement. And in all honesty, we pretty much have two part-timers that are the ones that are taking the hours because they're available. So that may not have that much of a negative impact anyway, but putting a process in place, just what Nate presented, makes sense, but we just don't agree with the monthly.
How many part-time shifts are there on a
It
given month?
depends with special events, it's gonna depend on sick calls, vacation coverage, whatever it could be, comp day coverage, whatever we can put out there, we want to make sure that that part-time rotation is at least somewhat fair, not just, one person literally taking everything. And we can prove that to you, since this has been done, it's been not good.
So to speak to that, January, probably not a lot of open shifts. July, tons and tons of open shifts.
Sure.
Right now with backfilling some of the village, shifts, there's been a few more available, and there's traffic ran,
But
both,
they're all going to the ones.
they're all going to one officer. So again, what we presented would rectify that, and what we envisioned is, again, each month, you just have this sheet, and you go through it through a month. And then when the month is over, you just use another sheet, because that maintained also seniority. The senior officer should get for some sort of benefit for being the senior officer.
And they do by getting the first option, but to get
If
the
you have a
first
rolling-
option every month, no. I
Well,
disagree.
They're not gonna have the first option if it's just a rolling thing, because
Correct.
if they'll get the first option the first day, and then they'll never have seniority ever again.
No, they'll get, when we go through the list, whenever that is, they'll go to the top again.
So
I
I think,
think this would be. go
So
ahead.
Nate, are you saying every month it starts over when you start from the top again?
Yeah, what we present is at the month, it starts over again, and so I'll tell you right now, it's Ditchite Spiegeloff. Ditchite would pretty much be guaranteed 2 days every month, because he's the most senior officer. If you have it rolling forever and ever, he gets the first pick on the first day, and then it's just gonna be a constant rotation forever after that.
Once we go through the list of part-time officers, you would come to the top again, 7 times, every 7 times.
And it's fair, everybody's got a shot.
Well, what I would say is, I guess the language we presented was voted on by the union members.
That's fine, but we weren't consulted in.
I'll let.
so I guess what we're trying to fix an inequity between how shifts are being assigned to part-time. Right now, the contract stands as most senior part-time officer can sign for the shift. Now, are we gonna be able to agree to take total seniority out of it? Or when do we do the resets, right? We're trying to fix an issue without overstepping, going back to what it was.
Sure.
So I have no issue with, maybe we put a end date instead of this being guaranteed to roll into the next contract. We try this monthly till the end of the year. We come back and we discuss it with management, how did this work? How did the inequities get fixed? Did they get fixed? Or should we go to a quarterly system or a half-year system where we reset that list? But we have to maintain, as the union, have to maintain some benefit to that seniority.
Every month, the same guys would get the opportunity to get those shifts, and it wouldn't reach the end of the list. Still, if you do it monthly, that's my concern. I don't think it'll fix anything.
Well, it really depends how many shifts there are per month, because.
Yeah, it might take a while.
Are there more than 14 shifts a month? Because that would give every single person 2 days. 14. Right. So, we believe, I guess it's contrary to the lieutenant's belief, but we believe that this would solve it, and we really are trying to look for evening out the shifts, but also maintaining seniority.
So it isn't so much the one with the 2 shifts, but it is the monthly rotation that I oppose.
Keep track of their hours and rotate them by hours.
So I will tell you, we've been looking for ways to do this for a very long time, and it is not easy, because not every shift is the same time. There's a million, there's so many facets, it just gets overwhelming. This was the easiest, to just have a cap that rotated. That was just.
How about doing it quarterly?
Yeah, I agree with quarterly.
Mhm,
We're sort of meeting in the middle.
mhm.
Also, when did you send this out? I don't recall seeing this.
Thursday afternoon, I sent it to the
I don't recall getting it all, and I'm looking online and I don't have it. Did it come out? Does
Yeah,
everybody
it's
have a
on,
copy of it?
yeah, it was sent and then it's on our
It was,
website.
yeah, it was in
Yeah.
my packet, that's how I got it, so. I actually stopped Saturday and picked up my packet.
We're trying to get it done to this meeting because we really wanna get something in place immediately so that our part-timers can start
Mhm.
receiving the benefits of this.
Because right now, I believe we have a lot of shifts coming up in March that will be open. And, you know, a lot of part-timers, we have different levels of part-timers in the department, right? So you have part-timers who work at another department who only are available for a day or two a week. You have retired people who are available for whatever, right? So we kind of get that mix. Right now, we have a retired person that's taking all the shifts, which.
And it would be that same way, Luke, if you do it this way.
He
Like I
would
said-
have first dibs every month, yeah, because he's
Yeah.
a senior officer, he's worked here like 14 years.
And what does that matter to the other, to the last?
So if we go quarterly, he'd be, every quarter, regardless,
Keep me on top.
he'd be on top.
Yeah,
I'm trying to, you know,
right.
That's.
so shoot the middle here somewhere.
Exactly.
You're not scheduling it though, it's difficult to maintain that, it would be easiest and more fair the way I'm suggesting.
Anybody else have any?
At the end of the year.
When I get done talking, I'll.
Starting
Yeah, I mean,
actual month quarters.
Yeah, Tim, it was sent Friday at
I got it right now.
Okay.
yes. So Nate, can I, okay, so if you do it on a monthly rotation, you're basically giving everybody every month, it rolls over, right? So you go through the list and everyone gets their turn.
It's their proposal.
It's in the summertime, it would be fine, but in the winter months, in the fall, in the spring, when there isn't very many, there wouldn't be very much opportunity because the most of you guys would take it every month.
So what you guys are saying is you stop every month and then you start over again.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might even.
because again, in winter, if the most senior guy just got shifts in November and it comes up in December, the most senior person might not be offered a single shift in December then.
Correct. But that's what they would be soon offered one again in January. You're acting like, not acting, I'm sorry. There's enough shifts to where it would come around, that these people aren't, it's a part-time job, it's not a full-time job, they're not here to make a living on it, it's just to supplement other incomes.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, everyone in our union approved this language, so it's kind of hard
We
to.
were not consulted about it at all.
That's why I said everyone in our union approved this language.
What are your scheduling concerns with the language presented?
My scheduling concerns are basically it's gonna, okay, a couple. Number one, that the same senior person, when you reset on month to month, is going to be, that's a huge advantage to that person. Number two, scheduling this and keeping up on this crazy rotation is also pretty labor intensive. So if you simply have it just off of that sheet is wonderful. And here's where we start logging them in and we keep going, and you just keep that sheet going. So if anybody ever wants to come here and challenge what I'm doing for schedules, here's the binder, here's where it sits, and here's done, but it going, oh, it's the first of the month again. And they're waiting, well, it's the first of the month again. And I think, to Bill's point, it also gives a little more equity to the lower senior people as more of a fair rotation. And I still think that one person that is the retiree in the group would still benefit because others can't take the shifts anyway. So but it still keeps it going and flowing in a non-ending cycle.
Yeah, I tend to agree. First of all, I think they should only take one shift at a time because like River Rhythms, a lot of these events are only one-day events. So you'd be taking multiple events. And again, a lot of months, you wouldn't even get to the bottom of the seniority list, so that person might still not ever get any time. It'd be just easy just to keep it going, just keep it rolling.
This isn't just for special events.
No,
This is for all
This is
shifts.
for all shifts.
All shifts.
For all
If
of
somebody
them.
calls in sick, if,
Part-timers,
yeah, backfilling vacations.
Yeah, so I wish I would have looked at how many shifts they get a month, but, in the summer, I bet there's many shifts, there's a good amount of shifts. Yes, in December, January, no, there's not that many shifts.
I think it'd be the most fair just to keep it rolling. I don't see any need to reset it. That doesn't seem to be fair to me.
Well, if you just lose all
Fair-
the seniority.
Excuse me, fairness and what we argue for in a contract based on seniority is different to two different people, right? I'm the youngest person, fairness to me is giving me a shot to work at overtime. I've been here for 20 years, fairness is 20 years meant something, and that's why we argued for it to be put in the contract.
Well,
But if you're worried about those younger people getting an opportunity, then this, the way we're suggesting is really how you show it.
Well, again, everyone on this list, that is a union paying member, agreed to this. So if you're asking what's fair, they all thought it was fair. This proposal was agreed upon by everybody.
The first one was thought to be voted on and was thought was fair too.
Yep, and we had
I'm only,
some,
I'm only wondering if, they agree to it now, but then if something would happen where they're the person right on the bottom who never get to that point, then they're gonna maybe start to complain if, right?
but they all, they,
And I
get that, but
And I think that's why we can sunset this for a year. Let's try this. I mean, we're fixing a problem we see, right? That when they did their contract, they went to all seniority assignment versus equitable distribution. I maybe overstepped what they thought would work, but we don't want to go all the way back to what didn't work either prior. What we're trying to do is find something in the middle. If we sunset this at the end of the year, come back and look at the numbers and say, okay, we're having an issue with the rolling, we can come and change, alter that language to quarterly or semi-annual resets. But I think we're trying to baby step a fix without overstepping it.
You wouldn't want to make it completely fair, you just want to make it kind of.
I don't,
We want to make it equitable with seniority.
everyone involved thought this was fair, so I don't know how
Yeah,
we
there's
can sit here
mostly
and say
senior
it's
members,
not
yeah.
fair. All of them, all of these people voted on this.
Minus the most senior member.
Yeah, they all
Will
voted.
will the disgruntled part-timers be willing to stick around if this doesn't work out? Will they still be here in a year, that it's worth changing at that
Well,
point?
they haven't, not one has left yet, but we obviously don't want any of them to leave. We want them to be here. And that's why they've been asking for a fix. And when we presented this to them, everyone wanted it. Is it perfect? I can't tell you. And that's kind of why let's try it for a year. This is what everyone wanted. So it's really hard for me to say, let's change it when the whole union said this was a good idea.
Okay, so the problem that we're trying to solve is not having the same person continuing to take all those
All the
shifts.
shifts.
We wanna
correct?
distribute the shifts.
So
And
if
every
we
month
can
that
implement
person
that
will get
part of it and just make sure that it's on a fair rotation, however, right, works out to be the most
More
fair, so
equitable.
everyone always gets their turn, I think would make the most sense, right?
But you still have seniority.
But then that's why we did it this way, because you have seniority. The two guys that have been here for 14 years, they're guaranteed 2 shifts a month. Good, they've been here for 14 years. They deserve that. The guy on the bottom that just started, he'll get better odds, because right now he's been getting nothing. But this cap will it just pushes everything down the road a little more to give them more options.
Well, the problem I see with this is this just dropped out of the sky, usually union contract things are negotiated with the board and this, I had no idea this was being worked on. I've never seen this before.
This is, this is the first time we're presenting it.
So I'm not in favor of this, so I don't know.
Oh, I have a couple of concerns. One is that there was no communication with the individuals who are gonna be responsible for implementing it. I think it's always a good idea to get as many viewpoints as possible because it helps work out kinks. A secondary concern is that the question isn't, is this perfect? At the moment, the question is this better than what we currently have? Because if we say no to this, then the status quo exists and that same guy still gets every single shift.
Well, unless, if this is the only opportunity, then yes, you're right.
And you're also right, we're not guaranteeing this will fix anything, it's better, it's a step in the right direction. It's what our members have been asking for, our part-time members.
So maybe do you guys need to sit down together and see if there's something that you can work out? And then come to the board with what you think would work?
As far
Are
as
there any,
the problem I see with the implementation, right? The administration has to implement this. And Whether it's implemented, whether the list has to be reset monthly or yearly, they can claim an administrative factor to that, correct? Other than the administrative factor, it does not affect them in any which way as administrators. We're trying to fix an inequity to keep part-timers here. Now, would it be better if we just go to a rolling list, eliminate seniority? Yeah, but maybe that 14-year-old officer now says, you know what, well, why, I'm not gonna be here anymore, I'll just go work somewhere else where I can get easier shifts to work. And he has 14 years of buy-in into Waterford. So we're trying to balance those two things. Now, we have, I mean, if they correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, every time, how many shifts do we have coming up in March? With all the.
Well, it starts, the first special event is March 9th.
No, but I'm talking regular shifts.
There's 14 village shifts that are gonna be available in March.
So 14 village shifts.
That's just from in the village, there's gonna be, a parade, and there's gonna be,
Oh, yeah, St. Patty's Day.
wild game feed for a couple, so
So that's,
maybe 20 shifts.
So we have 20 shifts to rotate through 7 to 8 part-timers. Now, is this fix gonna fix what happens in December and January when there's only 4 shifts or 3 shifts?
well, you never know that part, but redoing this every month is, from a scheduling standpoint, is my huge concern.
But that's also assuming that all of those shifts go to part-timers.
Right.
All this regular shifts, the village shifts would all go to part-timers per contract, because they're regular working shifts.
The bulk of the shifts are regular working shifts. Right now, filling in for the village, filling in for vacation days, sick days, things like that. That's the bulk of the part-time shifts. I'm just concerned if we go back, so right now, again, everyone voted yes on this language. If I go back and would say, hey, we're gonna remove part of the seniority aspect of this and just let it roll forever, I fear we're gonna lose votes from the most senior officers. So again, I just have a hard time changing something that everyone agreed to modify it to something that they won't agree to.
Yeah.
So every time that something comes up, you guys can just agree amongst yourselves, go to the board, not consult us, and then it's fine. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
over.
what, right, that's a problem. That's great that you guys spoke and worked it out, but then you also have to understand that, you know, we need to work collectively together before they think that something's set in stone, and we need to solve the problem of the same person continuing to take the shifts. We need to solve that in a way where everybody agrees and you know, we can all live with that.
And if you have an issue with the facilitation of it taking too much time, I absolutely get that point of it. And that is something, yes, we should consider. But if you have a fundamental disagreement with this, that's up to our union membership to decide.
No, I think that,
Did you know this was happening?
yeah, no, not.
So really, you just think it would take this would be labor intensive?
I could make a motion to do it just till the end of this year. and see what
Accurate.
happens.
To ensure, yeah, I'm looking at ensuring accuracy on
I
a
can make
monthly,
motion,
on a monthly
just do it till the end of the year. and
turnaround.
see
I
what
think
happens.
that's a
Make
big
motion, just do it
challenge.
till the end of the year. see what
And,
happens.
Till the end of the
I
year.
think you're looking at your voting membership. It's ironic that the number 1 person isn't a member of your union, so when you go, well, okay, so you're number 2, I'm saying that the number 1 guy who works the most shifts is not a voting member of your organization. And then that way, if we were looking at the number 1 seniority person, yes, works on not much now because he's getting other time. So when I'm trying to roll through these shifts and try to rotate them through, and then it's the first of the month, and then now this happens, then, this isn't right, and then that same person now files a grievance and gets 2 days paid. You know, we don't wanna get this, that's why another thing too is, let there be a mistake and then the grievances start flying, and I wanna avoid that, and there's a way to
I know
avoid that.
It's
Is
kinda,
to not put this on there, because I'm telling you, this is gonna be the gotcha game, where, well, yep, no, there's 31 days this month, oh, it's the first of the month, this shift came through and so-and-so didn't get it, and now it's gonna be this very rigid look at things about how they're implemented. And I'm just saying, from a scheduling standpoint, what Nate just brought up in there, I love it. I like the fact that it's gonna somehow move down, I just don't like the monthly part.
Do you think quarterly would be a meet in the middle for us?
I know, I was thinking we were saying that, I'm looking at, thinking about 2, could it be,
Because we all want this to happen today because we need something to happen. So
You still have to vote
Yeah, cause you would be changing your language.
Yeah, but if we could get it to them faster, I guess. You're right.
Could for most.
I don't wanna table it forever because our part-timers want this activity. Or maybe more management.
We have no problem, anything but the monthly.
Yeah,
Okay, I make a motion that we do it, but on a quarterly basis, trial period till the end of this year. And from now on, there's more discussion between the two groups
We'll
beforehand.
see how that works.
So would the motion be to move forward with this language with the addendum of it being quarterly?
Yes,
Correct,
Through 2024,
yes,
correct,
and that's when it sunsets,
yes.
correct.
And then we will revisit it,
and we revisit it.
yes.
And it would have to be pending approval by the union. We can't just.
Yeah.
Right.
change that.
Yeah. So really the only language will change is where it says each month, it'll say each quarter.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
And we'll
it'll-
start the regular.
Well, with the sunset.
Till the end of.
Yeah, till then.
to the end of 2024, just December 30th,
Yep.
2024, to be exact. Is that, do we have an agreement on that? Do we have
11:59,
that motion?
December 31st, yes. I need a second though.
I'll second that motion. Oops.
Okay, a first and a second, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay. We'll do that. Thank you. Thank you guys for sitting through all this, and we are going to adjourn, the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Oops, hold on.
Oh, hang on.
Were we discussing the wages at all?
I'm sorry?
it wasn't part of the post, so I don't know if we can.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I thought it was, I thought that's what today was about. Sorry.
No,
I thought it was too, but when I read the agenda, it wasn't part of the
Yeah,
agenda,
no,
so
no, no.
technically,
Sorry, my fault.
I would love to, but
so we
we'd
have
probably
first
be here
and
for another
second,
4
all in
hours. but-
favor of your
Aye.
adjournment? All right, motion adjourned, thank you guys. So what do we want to discuss for weekends?
For working events.